March 3rd, 2017, the underground bunker broke the story that the LAPD was investigating Danny Masterson for the assault of 3 separate women. In an article titled LA Probing Scientology and Danny Masterson for Multiple Rape Cover-Up, information came to light about the alleged sexual assault of 3 women in the early 2000s. All of the victims were members of the Church of Scientology at the time, as was Danny Masterson. All 3 of the victims complained that the church pressured them into silence and punished them for having been victimized. One of the victims accuses the LAPD of being compromised by its relationship with the Church of Scientologists, and says that one particular detective told her that the investigation was already, quote, ruined. Leah Remini, former Scientologist, was apparently the inspiration for one victim, who we will refer to from here on as Victim A, to come forward with her story. Remini's A&E series, called Scientology and the Aftermath, led to her deciding it was finally time to come forward. Documents obtained by the underground bunker showed that the LAPD had been investigating Danny Masterson in at least 3 alleged rape and sodomy cases, and again, all 3 women were also Scientology members. Leah Remini spoke to the underground bunker and stated that her show, Scientology and the Aftermath, was a key reason that Victim A had spoken up. Victim A confided in Remini before she made an official report, and Remini encouraged her to make a police report. And when she did, Leah became personally involved in the investigation, which soon grew because 2 more women made similar claims not long after. Victim B had actually reported to the LAPD back in 2004. So to everybody saying, why did all these women wait so long, it might become apparent as you look into this case. When Victim B made her initial report, her investigation was closed because several witnesses, who also happened to be members of Scientology, contradicted what her testimony said. So her case was closed and nothing was to come of it. Until many years later, when Victim A had come forward. The LAPD had no choice but to contact Victim B and reopen her case. They didn't do this on their own, though. This was done with Leah's encouragement. Leah met with Detective Reyes of the LAPD and said that these women deserved to be heard. She pointed out a framed photo of a Scientologist on the wall named Michael Pena and suggested that they do the right thing because now the whole world was watching. Nothing was going to go smoothly in this investigation, however, and after several months, Victim A was frustrated with the LAPD's investigation. She wrote a letter to the LAPD Captain William Hayes and to Chief Charlie Beck, spelling out claims that the LAPD was compromised by the Church of Scientology. In her message, Victim A described the background of her case and that she'd been in a relationship with Danny Masterson, but that he had allegedly anally raped her and injured her while she was unconscious in an incident that occurred in December 2001. She had never previously reported the charge because, like Masterson, she was a Scientologist. Scientology officials told her not to go to the police and had then punished her for being victimized. In her letter, she says, "They threatened me that if I ever told anyone or reported him to the police, that I would be declared a suppressive person and lose everything and everyone. They put me on massive ethics programs as punishment. My rapist was not punished at all. They didn't even call him to talk about it. Only recently," she wrote, "did she learn of another person who had been attacked by Masterson, Victim B, and then a third who also came forward, Victim C." Eventually, that 3 would become 4, and over the course of the investigation, there are a minimum of 7 others who spoke out and made claims that they too were allegedly assaulted by Danny Masterson in that same time period and over the years. However, only the 3 are involved in the criminal case, and those 3, as well as the 4th individual, are involved in a civil lawsuit against Scientology and Danny Masterson as individuals. Victim A had reported the alleged attack in her local city. It was then referred to LAPD's Hollywood station and was assigned to Detective Esther Reyes of the Robbery and Homicide Division. In her letter, she states, "I was told that my report was transferred out of Wilcox location into downtown due to leaks within the Hollywood Division. When I received a phone call from Detective Reyes later that day, she warned me that I'm not to speak to any other officer or anyone claiming to be an officer." Victim A wrote to the LAPD chief. She was told by Reyes that victim B's case, which had originally been assigned and investigated by the LAPD in 2004, had officially been reopened, and that victim C had also filed an official report. She told me that she has taken our police reports out of the LAPD computers so that no one could see them. She said she had them in a vault that only she and her captain could access. She told me this was done to safeguard the case, as she agreed that there are leaks in the LAPD and that some LAPD officers are very friendly with the Church of Scientology. It's unknown if this was intentional or not, but the case was highly mismanaged by Reyes. She had asked the victims to make controlled phone calls to try and get Masterson and others to talk about the alleged crimes. The victims were each assigned their own phone number that they could give out so that if Masterson or other witnesses called it, they would be automatically recorded by the LAPD. Victim A used her assigned phone number to call 2 Scientology ethics officers, as well as the publicist for Danny Masterson, Jenny Weinman. She was unable to get Masterson himself to call the number. In her email to the police chief, she complained that Detective Reyes never gave her any guidance on the phone calls, except to tell her that it would be acceptable if she lied during the conversations. She says, "Ray told me many times that the DA says if we fail to record the phone calls, then Reyes would have to find other victims independently of me and the other known victims. But besides the phone calls, there were witnesses to the incidents, and although Reyes said that they would be interviewed, they have not been to this point." Now this is at the point of the letter being written. It would turn out that the assignment of these numbers was absolutely pointless, because as victim A also explained in her message, victim B had been assigned her own number, but when she looked it up on a web search, she found that it returned results like, "Do not call this number, it's a police sting number." Reyes had apparently made a mistake, assigning victim B a number that had already been used in another case. Victim A wrote that Reyes continued to put pressure on her to get better information in her recorded phone calls, and that time was running out. She suggested I up the heat on the publicist. Not knowing what that meant and being under tremendous pressure not to fail Reyes or the case, I gave the publicist an ultimatum. I told the publicist that if Danny doesn't do the right thing and apologize to me, that I would back victim B and go public as well. Victim A alleges that Reyes called this a mistake and told her that she would have extended the time on the phone number, which victim A says Reyes did not make clear before that. She then accused me of ruining the phone calls with my ultimatum. So instead of her thanking me for spending the past month constantly making heart-wrenching phone calls to truly horrible people, she blamed me for ruining this part of the case. Since the victims started making recorded phone calls, witnesses to the incidents have begun flying to Los Angeles in recent days. Danny Masterson's people are collecting the witnesses to get them on the same page. I asked Reyes why she won't get their official statement before they're compromised. She told me again that she's looking for other victims. Something else that victim A states in this letter that is quite telling is that there were several times during this period that Reyes, out of the blue, told her that it was okay for her to walk away, that she wouldn't be mad at her, that no one would be mad at her, and she would totally understand if she felt like she wanted to walk away. After telling her to walk away, or that it would be okay to walk away, Detective Reyes told her that she had ruined the case with her recorded phone call to the publicist. Last night's phone call with her devastated me. I can't believe an SVU detective would speak so unprofessionally and so cruel to a sexual assault survivor. To coldly blame the victim for ruining a case, knowing that it would be a trigger for me, as the Church of Scientology had blamed me for getting raped. After the upsetting phone call, victim A told Reyes that she wanted a copy of her police report. Reyes had previously refused it, but this time sent victim A the initial page of her report. She says that in her email to the chief, it shocked her to report that instead of a rape investigation, the charge was listed as sodomy, which carries a less potential penalty, and the description of the incident was poorly written and inaccurate. Victim A has tried to get the rest of the report, and at the point of this letter, had been unable to. According to the LAPD report itself, victim A claimed that she was attacked and injured while she was unconscious. Victim and suspect lived together for 6 years, but were not married. Victim A went to bed, and when she woke up, she was bleeding from her anus. Victim confronted suspect, and he laughed at her and told her he had sex with her anus. And this is just a screen of that police report. Victim A finished her lengthy message to Chief Beck with an appeal to save the case from Detective Reyes' bungling. She ends with this very emotional plea. You have a serial rapist on your hands with God knows how many victims and how many future victims, and the Church of Scientology has known about it, threatened us, and silenced us, and covered it all up. I am begging the LAPD for a fair and honest investigation. I'm begging you all to do the right thing. I'm begging you for your help. A witness in victim B's case is a former Church of Scientology member and friend of Danny Masterson. He had attended a party hosted by Danny Masterson and states that Masterson was DJing. He says he saw victim B at the party, that she'd been sober until he witnessed Danny make her a drink. Later, he would hear a struggle and hear Danny say, "She's going in the pool." And then he threw her in, clothes and all. She did get herself out of the pool, but seemed very upset and had curled up in a chair in a ball. According to this witness, Danny Masterson had said, "Hey, let me take you upstairs." The witness had said, "Whoa," as in, "What are you doing?" I would assume, because that's what a decent human being does. But Danny had said, no, I'd never do that. She's my homie." So the party goes on. Later on, as it's starting to fizzle out, the witness is downstairs in the living room, and he hears a commotion coming up from the area of Masterson's bedroom. Then he sees B come out, very upset, and she says to him, "Oh my God, Danny just raped me." And she's visibly distraught and in hysterics and upset and crying. Victim B alleges that he had choked her for objecting to being assaulted. Apparently, she had been passed out and woke up while he was engaging in an assault on her. When she tried to struggle and resist, he had choked her into unconsciousness. Her police report is below. You can see that as well if you choose. This witness says that everyone at the party was Scientologists, and that after victim B came from that bedroom, everyone began trying to create the impression that nothing out of the ordinary had happened. Victim B was in the kitchen freaking out, and I was really concerned. But people were saying, "No, Danny didn't do anything. She's fine. She just had too much to drink." There was a commotion as they tried to calm her down and lead her upstairs. Someone convinced her to go up to Danny's room again, he remembers. Someone said to me, "She's gonna stay here and sleep it off." And then I left. A day or two later, he was called into Scientology's Hollywood Celebrity Center, where an ethics officer spoke to him about the incident. I was told in no uncertain terms by the ethics officer that victim B had had too much to drink, Danny had done nothing wrong, and that she was being handled. And I remember thinking, okay, but what's happening to Danny? So fast forward to 2017 when this all blows up and becomes public again. This is his first statement in response to being accused of sexually assaulting 3 women. "We are aware of the accuser's 16-year-old allegations. It was only after she was in contact with Leah Remini that she made allegations of sexual assault by Mr. Masterson. The alleged incident occurred in the middle of their 6-year relationship, after which she continued to be his longtime girlfriend. Significantly, during their long relationship, she made numerous inconsistent claims that she was previously raped by at least 3 other famous actors and musicians. When Danny ended the relationship, she continued to pursue him, even making threats to beat up his current wife, Bijou Phillips, unless she left him. In fact, we are informed by the church that the only demand the accuser made of the church after Danny broke up with her was asking for their help to intervene so their breakup would not be permanent. We are aware that approximately 14 years ago, a woman referred to in the blog made allegations of sexual assault, and that the LAPD interviewed numerous witnesses and determined the claim had no merit. Based on reading the anti-Scientology blog that posted this story, these false allegations appear to be motivated to boost Leah Remini's anti-Scientology television series, since the accuser only came forward after connecting with Leah Remini. Something to keep in mind when you think of Danny Masterson and who he is or who he was at that time. Gary Moorhead, a former Scientology security official, reminded us that before he was known as DJ Mom Jeans, Danny Masterson went by the charming stage name of DJ Donkey Punch. Gary even still had in his possession a DJ Donkey Punch party pass that he was given for a 2001 appearance by Danny Masterson. The Wiktionary definition of donkey punch is, the donkey punch is a relatively simple maneuver when engaged in anal sex from behind. Simply punch your partner in the back of the neck so that the sphincter clenches up. Isn't that beautiful? This man is disgusting. It would be 3 years later from the time victim A first went public with her claims that Danny Masterson was finally charged. His charges would be with rape of a 23-year-old woman in 2001, a 28-year-old woman in early 2003, and a 23-year-old woman in late 2003. If convicted on all 3 counts, he faces up to 45 years in prison. These charges took 3 years to be laid. This investigation was clearly fumbled, clearly slow-rolled, and clearly interfered with by the Church of Scientology. An example of some of the intimidation tactics used against victims of this type of crime by these types of high-profile people is in this letter to the husband of one of the victims, written by the lawyer chosen to defend him. Martin Singer, the attorney for Danny Masterson, has a very problematic history of his own, but we'll get into that later. In a letter he wrote to the husband of victim A, he was incredibly threatening and intimidating. I'm going to read some of that, and you can pause to read the rest if you choose. We are litigation counsel to Danny Masterson. We demand that you immediately cease and desist from disseminating false and defamatory statements about my client. We are aware that you have posted on your Twitter page an outlandish, defamatory statement falsely accusing my client of being a rapist. The statement that is a malicious lie. Your false assertion that my client engaged in such heinous criminal conduct is defamation per se. This exposes you to very significant liability for defamation. We demand that you remove the statement from your Twitter page immediately. Your defamatory statement on Twitter referring to my client as a rapist actor who engaged in criminal conduct constitutes textbook defamation per se. The potential extent of damage to my client's reputation from your dissemination of such lies is obvious and cannot be overstated. However, because you have falsely accused my client of a crime, my client would not need to prove any special damages in any legal action against you. His multi-million-dollar damages would be presumed in any litigation. Be advised, you will be unable to evade liability by claiming that the omission of my client's name from your tweet somehow absolves you of responsibility. It does not. It is evident from replies posted in response to your tweet that readers know that your statement is about my client. Furthermore, even if hypothetically you were previously unaware that the statement was false, which we doubt. Side note, this is the husband of a victim, an alleged victim. Now that you are in receipt of this legal demand, you have unquestionably been put on notice of the facts, such that your continued publication of defamatory statement would supply further evidence of your constitutional malice. This would exacerbate the liability you already face for your wrongful conduct. My client will not tolerate your reckless and malicious publication of defamatory lies about him. We demand that you immediately remove the false statement about Mr. Masterson from all locations where it appears on your Twitter page and from all electronic media under your control, including all social media and news feeds. We further demand that you cease and desist from repeating the statement in the future. This is an extremely serious matter. If you fail to immediately remove the statement from your Twitter page, and if you persist in disseminating defamatory lies about my client, you face extremely serious legal consequences. If you disregard this letter's demands, you do so at your own peril. Please govern yourself accordingly. The case has now become incredibly high profile with a lot of media coverage, but I still don't think it's enough. Too many people have no idea that this is happening. In the background, there's been a lot of court theatrics with Masterson, and luckily, it does not seem to be being taken seriously. In October, they filed a motion to basically have the court throw the case out due to the statute of limitations. But considering he was charged under California's one-strike law and that the penalty is 45 to life in prison, the statute of limitations doesn't apply. An arraignment was set for November 2nd, but again, it's been delayed. It is now set for January 6th. He is expected to enter a plea of not guilty. Masterson did attempt to have that decision overturned with a very unusual type of court proceeding called a demurrer. On November 2nd, Masterson filed a petition for a writ of mandate, which is an attempt to have the denial of the demurrer, which was the motion to have it dismissed due to the statute of limitations, overturned. But last Friday, this was denied by William Ryan at the Superior Court's Writ Center. The underground bunker consults legal experts who state that filing a demurrer in a criminal case before the defendant is arraigned is extremely uncommon, and that seeking a writ to overturn the denial of the writ again before arraignment is also extremely unusual. Just personally, it sounds like he has way too much money to burn, and gotta wonder who's bankrolling that. He's burning through a mountain of cash, states the underground bunker, in a futile attempt to stop his arraignment. I find it hard to believe that the attorney would take these up on his own, says a California litigator who's been helping us understand what's going on with the case. She says this is another unusual and costly move, and that the attorney would have likely known it was futile. We tell our clients what we believe is in their best interest, but ultimately, it's up to our clients what to do. If Danny is being told by the church, or if he's getting from his background in the church to delay, then the attorney is going to do what the client wants him to do. The expert says, I can tell you that a writ of that quality would take 40 to 60 hours of research to draft, review, and revise. So they're definitely spending beaucoup buck. There are currently 4 women who have accused Danny of sexual assault. Not only are they pursuing this criminally, but they are also suing Masterson along with the Church of Scientology for harassment. They claim that the church has harassed and intimidated them in an attempt to keep them quiet. All 4 allege that Danny had had sex with them when they were unconscious or too intoxicated to consent. One victim, who was his girlfriend, claims that he constantly forced her to engage in sexual activity, and when she tried to refuse, he became violent. 2 of the victims say that they reported Masterson to the church in hopes of support, in hopes of some sort of consequence, but they were ordered to never go to the police, and they were punished. Remember that. They were told that you can't call it rape because you're in a consensual relationship with him. They must have done something wrong. They had to go through ethics, through training, past live investigations to figure out what they must have done. What did they do in past lives to end up deserving to be raped by this man? Thankfully, all 4 did eventually find the courage and the strength, potentially in numbers, thanks to victim A coming forward initially. The other 3 were able to find the inspiration to say something, and they did defy the church and reported what they needed to report. But all of them allege they were stalked and terrorized just for seeking justice for the crimes committed against them. The Church of Scientology is a dangerous organization. I don't know how long this video will stay up. There's a really good chance it'll be struck for some reason. Copyright, terms of service, I don't know. But just know that I won't be taking it down for any reason. I tried to be really careful here. Everything is alleged. Danny Masterson has not been convicted of a crime. However, in my opinion, I believe these women just as I would believe any woman who tells a story that is as horrific as theirs. It remains to be seen what will happen with the criminal case against him or the civil case. But I hope that somehow, in some sense, these women can find peace and that justice will be served. The Church of Scientology itself calls the lawsuit a total publicity grab, blaming all of it on Leah Remini and her docuseries, saying that this is all just to garner ratings for her and to increase negative publicity for the church itself. Keep in mind, it took 3 years for any arrest to be made, and Masterson is certainly still sitting pretty with his mega buck backing. I don't know where his bankroll would come from. I would assume he's still getting paid for that 70s show since it's in syndication, and probably will be forever because it was so wildly successful. But considering he was written out of the ranch after a lot of public pressure was put on Netflix to remove him after these allegations surfaced, I don't know if he's doing anything presently. Like, I have no idea. I haven't seen him. I don't want to see him. This makes me upset because, I'm not gonna lie, that 70s show was my favorite, and I loved that show. But now when I watch it, I see a monster, and I find it distressing, and it makes me sad that so many people are in denial. He couldn't possibly have done this because look at him, he's so cute, oh, he's so sweet. Give me a break, people. It's an act, and even then his character wasn't sweet at all, was he? I personally believe that this has been a huge cover-up, that the LAPD is compromised, bankrolled, and owned by Scientology, and that anyone coming out against any renowned member of the church will go through absolute hell before anything will happen for them. Hopefully this case will be setting a precedent so that more women will feel supported and know that it's safe to speak out. It's never your fault. You didn't deserve it. Your husband can commit assault, or your boyfriend. We hear you, we believe you, and we want justice for you. Just know that.